Here's the deal. And I don't know about you, but if I see a cockroach or a bug in my kitchen, what's the first thing in my mind? If there's one, there's got to be hundreds of them, right? I've been in rental property. I used to rent out uh, trailers, okay, and trailer courts and so forth. This is years ago. It's another lifetime ago. But you'd walk into one after someone's moved out, and if you saw one roach, you knew there were hundreds. So you had to exterminate them, right? You had to get rid of them. You can't just step on one and say, okay, problem solved. Doesn't work that way.
A little bit of crazy, but a whole lot of right. You're listening to the Average Joe Podcast with Damon Gilbert.
Good afternoon, folks. How are you? Glad to see you here. This is the Average Joe Podcast, and I'm Damon. And we're going to talk about a few things today. But first, I'd like to introduce myself to anyone who hasn't seen me or doesn't know me. I've done a podcast for several years, strictly audio. So this is a little bit different for me with doing it with the video. But just to give you a heads up on who I am and why I do what I do, I really enjoy doing this. It's more therapy for me than anything. I get to talk about, daily events, things that have made me angry. I point out inconsistencies, absurdities, everything. My wife used to tired of me yelling back at the screen of the TV, and she'd say, "Why don't you just do a podcast and it'd make you feel better?" And it actually has. So this is kind of a learning experience for me as far as doing the video, which makes it a little more difficult because you have to. There were times when I would do an audio podcast and I just keep my eyes closed. And so you can't do that on camera. So anyway, here we are. I want to make sure we're clear on this. What we're doing here today and what I want to do, is on a regular basis. I want this to be just a chat. We're sitting around the kitchen table and we're just shooting the breeze, talking about current events. I know you can't reply, but at some point I'm planning on doing a live stream, so we'll be able to converse back and forth. But right now it's just me talking, and that's the thing I like about this kind of platform. I have no one interrupting me. If you know what it's like, and you've been out in public, you've been with friends and family, people have a tendency to interrupt. Correct? Tell me I'm wrong. They have a tendency to interrupt you. They're so worried about what they're going to be saying that they're not even listening to you. So this gives me an opportunity to talk without anyone interrupting me, and it gives you an opportunity to listen. Works out for both of us. So just consider this sitting at the kitchen table and having a nice conversation. I'm going to introduce myself, kind of go over where I'm coming from. I am a middle-aged man. Middle-aged, 66 years old. I'm retired. I was a UPS driver, truck driver for years. And I've gotten past that. So I'm doing something else now, looking for something else to do. And I'd like to make it worth my while. Let me move this around so that I'm not, there we go. Okay. Sorry about that. This is all new to me, so I got to be very careful. And I also want to make sure that you understand I'm not going to edit this much, okay? Because if you're sitting around the kitchen table and you're shooting the breeze with somebody, your friend, your family, we don't edit that. We leave the bad stuff in here, and I kind of like that. I've always had a tendency to leave the blemished in. I like that. So. Anyway, now let's see. Let's stop here and see if this looks good. How do I want to start this? I want you to understand who I am and where I'm coming from. I was a Democrat probably 10 to 12 years ago. I was. I'll be the first one to admit it. This was prior to Barack Obama. I wouldn't call it a bleeding heart liberal by any stretch. I was more of a common sense Democrat. That's what I was. I thought everyone should, basically pull their own weight. But when something happens and the chips are down, maybe someone should be there to help bail you out. That's basically it. I was not a Republican. I couldn't stand Republicans. As a matter of fact, today I can't stand Republicans again. I can't stand any politician as far as that goes. I have come to the conclusion, and I'm sure you probably agree with this to some extent, that there's no such thing as a good politician. Politicians, for the most part, if as far as I'm concerned, and I could be wrong on this. And by the way, I want to make sure you understand something. I have to be very careful what I say on here. And the reason I do is because at one point I had 2 strikes on my YouTube channel. I was just on the verge of being kicked off of the platform. That's why I pretty much went to audio only on a different platform. Long story. Point is, I couldn't talk about certain things. You know which ones they are. Has to do with certain elections and certain, I don't know, viruses. You really can't say those words. You can now. You can now to some extent. You can talk about these things, but you never know where YouTube's going to go. So I have to be very careful what I say and how I say it. So having said that, I want you to understand, I also have another platform. It's averagejonation.substack.com. I'll run the thing across here, the banner, so that you can see it. Let's see, here is, yeah, here we go. Let me show it here. It's averagejonation.substack.com. Now, on that channel, because of the setup and the fact that it's subscription based, okay, I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's like $6 a month or something. It's nothing. But we do talk about everything, and you will know exactly how I feel. Some of it will be controversial. You may not even agree with a lot of it, but I have a tendency to unload on that channel. So if you're interested in that, go over and look at that as well. We can connect there, and you can really get a sense of where I'm coming from. But that's neither here nor there. And if it's not here nor there, then where the hell is it, right? Okay, so I'm going to turn that off. Yep, that's another one. They're wanting me to. I tell you what, it really irritates me sometimes. What is the deal with this? I want to turn that one off. Turn this one off. How do I do that? Hide that one. Off, on. See, I like this setup because you can see my mistakes. I'm not going to edit this. It's not worth it. It's not worth my time because you can see my mistakes. I'm like everybody else. I make mistakes. But anyway, back to what I was saying. I was a Democrat 10, 12 years ago. Thought I was doing the right thing. And then along came Barack Obama. Okay. Barack Obama showed his face, put his hat in the ring. Came out of nowhere, by the way. I mean, absolute nowhere. I had never heard the man's name. Had you? I know he gave the main speech at the Democratic convention. I think it was in. I'm not sure if it was Al Gore. I'm not sure, but anyway, we knew he was a rising star at that point. I'd never heard of the man. Never heard of him. So, long time Barack Obama, black man, supposedly. Okay. Is he black? I don't know. Is he 10% black? I have no idea. I don't even know where he was born. Do you? There's been tremendous amount of controversy about that. So, long came Barack Obama, 2008, and I thought, I probably should vote for this guy. I'm a Democrat. And I didn't want to look like a racist. Okay. So I thought, I'm going to vote for this guy. I'm listening to his speeches. He's not saying anything. Hope and change. That's all we talked about. Hope and change, hope and change. Well, sometimes change is not always good, right? Okay. So I voted for this clown. I did. And I know it's a derogatory statement. I voted for this clown, but I did because I did not want to be perceived as a racist. And I think a lot of people felt that way out there. He sold me a bill of goods, though. He did. He did not do a single thing that he said he was going to do. He really didn't. He was probably one of the worst presidents we've ever had. But he was black, so you couldn't critique him. You could not be negative in any way, shape, or form about him or his family, anything, because he was black. Otherwise, you'd be seen as a racist. Well, 4 years go by, nothing gets done. He folds like an aluminum lawn chair. He does absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, he went against some of the many of the things that he said he was in favor of. He was a horrible president. So 2012 rolls around. Guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not voting for this clown. I'm not doing it. I voted for him in 2008 to prove I wasn't a racist. And I didn't vote for him in 2012 to prove I wasn't an idiot. Okay. So that is where the transformation started for me. I went from a full-blown Democrat defending my position to friends of mine who were more conservative. And looking back, I was conservative as well. Just didn't know it yet. Because the Democratic Party did such an about face. And we'll get into that in just a second. But second thing that came along that changed my tune, my outlook, my philosophies, my belief system was Michael Brown. The Michael Brown shooting in Ferguson, Missouri. I was close to it. I'm in the Midwest. I'm just outside of St. Louis. So we got all of the information. I knew people who served on the front line, police officers. I talked to them. I got their perspective, found out that this was all nonsense. Eventually, when that first happened, I was on board. I said, the cops, you can't trust them. It's their fault. I couldn't have been, and I want to make sure I make this clear, could not have been more wrong. Could not have been more wrong. I was way off. Now, having said that, are there such things as bad cops? Of course there are. Are they all bad? Absolutely not. The vast majority of them are just doing their job and doing the best they can at that job. So that changed my mind as well. Suddenly, I'm sitting around going, what is this? So 2012 comes along. I don't vote for Barack Obama. Everything goes sideways. Nothing's the way it should be. He fulfills none of the promises he made. He enriches himself. I find out that possibly he was born in Kenya. Possibly his father, who was picked out of a lineup to be, I take that back. Let's just say his lineage is not exactly written in stone. We're not sure where he comes from. I don't know if you've ever heard of Frank Marshall Davis, but look it up, okay? Because there's something going on there. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of Frank Marshall Davis, and I'll put it up on screen here in just a second. But tell me this is not Barack Obama's dad. Look me dead in the eye and tell me that's not the case. Could that have happened? Absolutely. And if you look into Frank Marshall Davis, who was a self-proclaimed communist that lived in Chicago, where Barack Obama spent many of his summers as a child, there's something going on here. So we're not going to get into that. I want to make sure you understand how I do this. Sometimes I can wander off the path. Okay. I try not to do that. I try to stay focused, but you know how conversations are when you're having them at the kitchen table. You can start talking about one thing and the next thing you know, you're talking about something completely different. That's kind of the way we do business here. If that's not something you can live with, then you're probably talking to the wrong guy or listening to the wrong guy. But anyway, so 2012 comes along. We suffer through 4 years of this. And suddenly, out of the clear blue, along comes a guy named Donald J. Trump, who, when I first heard he was running for president, and now he's threatened to do this before, prior to this, and it was always kind of a joke. I mean, and I want to make sure I'm clear here. I'm no Donald J. Trump fan. Okay, I never seen The Apprentice. Never watched a full episode of The Apprentice. It was on for what, 16 years? Very successful. Never watched it. I knew he was a playboy. I knew he was a billionaire. I knew he'd made his money in real estate. Always kind of admired him from a distance. Never really thought anything about it. I thought this guy's got it made. He's made his billions. He made his billions in New York City, probably one of the hardest places. What's the old saying? If I can make it in New York, I can make it anywhere. Absolutely accurate. You know, you're dealing with some of the probably one of the toughest environments you could probably do, and especially in the real estate business. But he made it despite that. He's a businessman. And I'll be honest with you. Do you remember Ross Perot from the 90s? Do you remember him? He came along out of the clear blue and said that he could turn this country around. This is prior to, Clinton and Al Gore and George Bush. So along comes Ross Perot, a billionaire, by the way, a businessman, somebody who's actually done something as opposed to being a politician. And by the way, as far as I'm concerned, politicians have never done anything in their lives. They take this profession up because they're incapable of doing anything constructive for the most part. So that's my opinion. I have a very low opinion of politicians. I don't care if they're local. I don't care if they're state. I don't care if they're federal. My philosophy is these guys are scumbags. They really are. So along comes Ross Perot. He says, hey, you know what we need to do? We need to sit down. He said, what we actually need to do, I'll never forget this. I'm not gonna try and quote this verbatim, but he basically said, hey, we need to we need to raise the hood and check this vehicle out and see what's wrong with it. And the vehicle being the country. And I agreed with that. I really did. I thought he was the guy. I thought, and I know he didn't come across real well on TV. I understand that. He was sharp. He had a funny little voice. Yeah. Fine. But was he correct about what he was saying? He was 100% correct. He was 100% correct. And he lost because, well, he chickened out is what he did. And I had a real problem with that when it happened, because I thought this guy, he acts like he's this businessman who is not afraid of anything. And then something goes sideways. I guess the story is they threatened his granddaughter's wedding or something. I don't know what it was. Anyway, he just bows out. Still ends up with, I think, 15% of the vote. And mine was one of them. So fast forward about 15, 20 years. And now all of a sudden we've got another billionaire on the farm here. We've got another billionaire in the field. We've got another billionaire who's walking up and saying, look, I know how to run a business. The way this government's being run right now, you cannot run a business this way. We have to look at it from a business standpoint. He said, I can fix this. 2016. What happens? He ends up winning. I had no idea that was going to happen. Honestly, in 2016, I had Hillary Clinton being the winner. There was no way the Clintons were going to lose this. No way. Never count a Clinton out. As a matter of fact, it's 2026 right now. And I would not count the Clintons out. I wouldn't. She's dangerous. She's scary. She's evil, but she's been very successful. And Bill, you know how that's worked. 8 years in the White House, got away with everything. Don't ever count a Clinton out. But anyway, the point being, along comes Donald Trump. Suddenly I'm looking at the world completely different. I'm listening to a man who talks the way I do. I'm listening to a guy who is coming up with ideas, saying that he will work to get this done. He's going to fix America. So suddenly I'm on board. I don't know about the rest of you, but I was like, this guy is all right. I like this guy. And what's funny is all the people that hate him are the ones I hate. That was the selling point. If you hate Donald Trump, then I don't like you. And I disagree with your belief system because he was professing something that I could identify with. Okay, so he ends up winning. And then along comes 2020. Now, I'm not saying that we accomplished a lot in 2016 to 2020, but we fought a good fight. Now, Donald Trump, on the one hand, I supported him all through that. I didn't agree with everything he said. I was not an acolyte. I didn't die by MAGA. Okay. I mean, all I wanted was for my family and me to do okay. That's it. That's what most people want. I want and when you look at it from that standpoint, what you're saying is, I wanted the country to do good. That's it. That's all he was interested in. That's all Trump wanted. He was successful in this country. He wanted to help it get back on its feet, make America great again. How could you possibly be against that? Well, you can. You can, because if you're a lunatic lefty, you will be against it. And folks, that's why I turned my back on the Democratic Party. I don't know what version of the Democratic Party this is. I have no idea. I mean, I don't like the Republicans either. Other than, the only reason Donald Trump is a Republican is because it was the only party that would allow him in. Democrats were going to do that, so he had to make a move. So that's all. It's all silly now. You look back at it, but I mean, my point being, if you're a Democratic or a Republican senator, I probably don't like you, and I think I speak for a lot of people out there. So that's how I came to be who I am. I hope that clarifies it. So that gives you some kind of a reference point to what you're going to be hearing in the coming months. Okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to get back to this. I'm going to try and do this once a week. Probably a 25 to 45 minute podcast. And we'll talk about current events. We'll talk about a lot of things, a lot of stuff that really won't be relevant to that particular day. I'm going to do a series on retirement to kind of give people I don't know, maybe a map of how to get through retirement, because it can be tough. But anyway, that's another segment. And again, I just want to introduce myself. And if you would do me a solid, well, that's what the kids say, do me a solid, subscribe, like the video, and we'll move on from there. And check out my other website, substack.com, averagejoenation.substack.com. Check it out and see what you think. And we will talk again. I'm probably going to have a couple of, excuse me. See, now I'm not going to take that out. So that's my editing process. I don't edit because, and I hate to sound like a broken record. And I know if you're younger than 30, you don't even know what I'm talking about, but I don't want to repeat myself. But I think personally, leaving things like that in, it makes it more genuine. It really does. So anyway, that's all I got on this subject. We'll be right back. Let's see if this starts. Yeah, there we go. I'm back. This is the second segment, part 2. I wanted to talk about Operation Epic Fury. All right. Now, this has been an ongoing thing. It started on February 28th. I know you're aware of it, so I'm not going to bore you with the details. We are basically trying to bomb Iran back into the Stone Age. And why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? Well, because radical Islam is evil and it should be eradicated from the face of the earth. I'm not a big fan of Islam to begin with. I don't think it's a peaceful religion, but that's my opinion. Doesn't mean anything to anybody. All I know is radical Islam is definitely evil. There's no doubt about it. And we started this Operation Epic Fury. Now, mind you, Operation Roaring Lion. Now that's an Israeli term that they're using for the very same operation. Now, you got to understand where Israel's coming from. Now, I know a lot of people are going to go, not nuts over this because they say Israel is the a lot of people out there believe that Israel is the reason for all of the ills in the world. Is that true? I don't know. I don't know. Is Zionists, are they part of the problem? It's possible. It's possible. I mean, I've read things. I mean, banking system, everything's run by the Jewish. I wouldn't even say religion, but Jews in general, people from Israel. But in this particular case, I happen to believe that they're right, and I can't imagine living next to a neighbor who is hell bent on destroying you and killing you and eradicating you from the face of the earth. Imagine, if you will, the United States. Here we are. We've got Mexico to our south, or Nicaragua, or any of the Central American countries. Imagine one of them's down there. Cuba, for instance. Remember what we went through when Russia tried to put missiles in Cuba in 1960, in the 60s? We were ready to go to war. We were ready to go to nuclear war over that. So you can see Israel's point when they've got a neighbor who is hell-bent on destroying them. And they said it out loud. There's not even a question anymore about whether or not this is true. The mullahs, the ayatollahs, the IRCG, they've all come out and said, our goal is to destroy Israel. Now, because we, the United States, are an ally of Israel, guess what they say about us too? They want to eliminate us from the planet. Now, here's the bad thing. They don't have nuclear weapons yet, but they have uranium that they're enriching. They've told us they're going to do it. Now what they'll do is they'll lie. They'll say, we're enriching our uranium for civilian reasons. In other words, we want to use it in a nuclear power plant. That's not true, because they're enriching it to up into the 90s instead of the 20s, 20%. It's not real complicated, but when someone's doing that and you're using centrifuges to do this, you know what they're doing. They want a weapon-based uranium that they can use to put in a bomb, to put it on a missile, and to shoot it into Israel and to try to destroy them. And if they had the capability, they're going to put it on an ICBM and have it launched at us in the United States. And if you think that's hyperbole, you're crazy. They've said it out loud. That's what they want to do. So here we are. This is what? April 8th. It's April 8th. According to the Secretary of War, Hegseth, he says that this is after weeks of bombing Iran, we have fulfilled all of our goals so far in Iran. So where do we sit? We've killed practically all of their leadership. We killed the Ayatollah. I think we killed his son. So there's always somebody waiting to take. It's like the way the mafia works, or drug cartels. There's always somebody ready to take their place. There's always somebody in the back that goes, "Hey, I'll take the job. Yeah, I've been waiting for this opportunity." So, Larry's dead, Mo's dead, Curly's dead. Well, now it's my turn. Yeah, so I'm going to take that spot. There's always one of them left. So there's always going to be someone waiting to fill that void. They don't give a damn about their people. They've killed their people for their belief system. The Iranian people, I feel very sorry for them. We've done this for 46 years or 47 years. 1978, the Islamic Revolution. That's when they took over the embassy, took our people hostage, Americans hostage. We've been putting up with this for 47 years. So everybody's in an uproar right now because Trump, we've bombed them into submission. They have asked for a 2-week ceasefire. They're going to try and negotiate this thing. Now, here's the deal. And I don't know about you, but if I see a cockroach or a bug in my kitchen, what's the first thing in my mind? If there's one, there's got to be hundreds of them, right? I've been in rental property. I used to rent out trailers, okay, and trailer courts and so forth. This is years ago. It's another lifetime ago. But you'd walk into one after someone's moved out, and if you saw one roach, you knew there were hundreds. So you had to exterminate them, right? You had to get rid of them. You can't just step on one and say, okay, problem solved. Doesn't work that way. Radical Islam is the same way. You're not going to win this unless you destroy all of them. You have to stamp them out. You have to bring in the big guns. And we've been doing that so far. I respect Trump for this. I really do. They're talking about war crimes. Democrats are wanting to. Hang on just a second. God. Oops, sorry about that. Got a phone call. Absolutely meant nothing. But anyway, back to what I was saying. See, this is how it works. You know, I kind of run another business here, so sometimes I get calls. But anyway, point is, you have to take care of them. We've done a pretty good job so far. Trump, I know he doesn't want to kill civilians, innocent civilians, but I'm telling you right now, the only way this is going to work, and you're going, because I don't want to be back in this spot again. I really don't. I think this should be solved. The Strait of Hormuz should be open. It's affecting the world economy. And I'll be damned if I think that you should allow a country like Iran to control the world like that. There's no reason for it. They have they're doing it just to be a pain, okay? Because they think that's the only way they can get back at the United States and Israel for turning them into a parking lot. I say personally, you have to destroy the entire group. You have to hunt them down. You have to make it like the Nazis in World War II, where it's a bad thing to be one of these. The people of Iran need to stand up against these people. They really do. This is their opportunity. Trump was right. You may not get another chance like this in a generation. So I say, here's what I say. These people think, now I'm talking about the IRCG. I'm not talking about the Iranian people. I'm talking about radical Islam. And it's all over the place. Radical Islam's everywhere. These people, Iran has been fighting and causing trouble in the Middle East by proxy. You got Hamas, you've got the Houthis, you've got Hezbollah. They're funding all of this. You have to stop this. You have to. And the only way to do that is to destroy them. And I think the best way to do it is to destroy their infrastructure. Make them start from scratch. Make the Iranian people rise up. You're going to have to force them to do that. You're going to have to. Right now, they're on the verge of being without drinking water. Okay, so what's the best thing to do? Destroy their ability to, clean water. Destroy their electrical system. Make it where literally and figuratively bomb them back into the Stone Age. And I hate to be like that. I really do. But you know as well as I do, if you're a person with an IQ above 80, you know this is what has to be done. You have to destroy these people. You cannot allow them to climb back up. Because if you don't, and I hope Trump understands this, I'm sure he's being told this by his military. You have to do this. Now, we've given him a 2-week stay. Is that correct? In my book, it's not. But I will say this. I'm not going to critique him on this at all. I'm just not going to. Because we've been dealing with this for 47 years through numerous administrations who did absolutely nothing about it. I mean, Barack Obama talked a great game. about Iran and what we need to do. Bill Clinton did. They all do. They all do. But at the end of the day, what do we do? Nothing. We let them fester. We let them. I mean, Joe Biden gave them $4 billion to spend. He unfroze their assets in the United States. By the way, just for the record, I personally think Joe Biden is the worst president in American history. And I've said that over and over again. And I'm beginning to believe that my statement is being vindicated as we learn more as we go along. We're going to talk about that at some point too. And by the way, I don't think that's Joe Biden half the time. I've seen too much evidence to the contrary that they use stunt doubles, basically. But that's for another day. We're going to talk about that. But back to the Iran thing. We need to stomp them out. The only thing a bully understands is force. That's it. That's it. And you cannot allow them to climb back into the ring. You just can't. So this 2-week thing, do I agree with it? Absolutely not. Do I understand it? Absolutely. We've been dealing with this for 47 years. What's 2 more weeks going to hurt? And I guarantee you they're going to violate the ceasefire. Guarantee you they will, because they have no control over what's going on. These people with these positions in Iran right now. First of all, you're talking about 3rd, 4th string guys, okay? And they have no control over what's going on in the field. They have no communications. We walked in, we flew in there. They didn't even know we were there. You'll notice Russia and China aren't saying much. They've stayed out of the argument completely. Why do you think that is? Well, for one thing, they sent them and they sold them all their anti-ballistic missile technology. They sold to them hardware that was supposed to prevent an action like this, and none of it worked. None of it did. Now, they shot down that F-15 pilot. I have no idea what happened there. You know, a blind squirrel find an acorn every once in a while. It was bound to happen. Does it mean that their technology is cutting edge? Of course not. It doesn't. And by the way, rescuing that F-15 pilot and that weapons operator, who was, by the way, a colonel, which I thought that was really odd. The guy sitting in the back seat of this F-15 was a colonel. That's amazing to me. And guess what we did? We didn't leave him behind. We didn't do what Barack Obama did or Joe Biden. We didn't leave people behind. No, we went in. We got them. It could have been one of the proudest days of my life for my country. Besides the fact I was proud on February 28th as well when we initiated this attack. I really did. I said, yes, the United States needs to stand up and be the badass that we are around the world. I'm not saying we need to abuse it, not by any stretch. I'm not saying we should, go in and take over territory that's not ours. But if you got a guy threatening you, claiming that they would love to see you eliminated from the face of the earth, threatening you, threatening the area that they around where their country is, yes, I say force is the way to go. I do. People say, well, what if it's your son? Well, that's a good question. What if it is my son? Well, I would still stand at attention, and I would still be proud of my country. And this rescue mission it doesn't get any better than this. It really doesn't. There are going to be movies made about this. This is going to go down in history as one of the greatest rescues in the history of mankind. No losses. We lost no one. We went into a violent area, a place where there was a bounty on this guy's head. Now, if you don't know the story, the pilot was found immediately, but the weapons officer was not, and he was injured. So he evaded. He fell back on his training, from what I understand. And I don't know anything about this, but the people who do have told me the training is so important in this. He knew how to evade. He knew how to send signals. They found him. They had a bounty out on him. I think it was $30,000 they were offering for a live capture. So naturally, you've got the IRCG, the people who are left of that group, out looking for this guy. They wanted this guy bad. And what do? We swoop in. We sent in assets like you cannot believe to save this one guy's life. I couldn't have been prouder. I couldn't have been prouder to be an American that day. When Donald Trump on Easter Sunday started his Truth Social tweet with, "We got him." It was a wonderful time. It made me feel so good inside. It really did. Despite any of my disagreements with Democrats, this was about being an American. It really was. And it was about having the greatest military in the world. And we finally have a guy who's willing to use that military. And strategically, too. Surgical strikes. I mean, we're not carpet bombing an entire country like we did in Vietnam. We're not doing that, which I firmly disagreed with. I was not a fan of the Vietnam War. It's a very interesting thing to read about and to study, but at the end of the day, there were a lot of things that were all wrong with that conflict. But having said that, back to, and see, I'm trying to stay on the pathway here. Back to the Iranian issue. Do I think we should carpet bomb Iran? No, I do not. But I feel in my bones the only way this is going to be resolved is if we bring these people to their knees. And when I say these people, I am talking about radical Islam. Okay. I was never a fan. Just as an aside, I was never a fan. When I read about FDR putting Japanese Americans in internment camps during World War II, I wasn't a fan of that. I thought that was wrong. But I got to tell you, I'm beginning to understand why they did that. I'm beginning to understand why FDR thought that was the thing to do. Because if you think about it, imagine how many Iranians are over here right now in the United States, either legally or illegally. Imagine how many are here. Should we round them all up and put them in internment camps? I don't know. If you got your enemy in your neighborhood, should you do something about that? I don't know. It's a question for later. I don't think this is going to go on that long. But there are such things as sleeper cells. We all know that. Now, sleeper cells are an interesting thing. Now, I'm not. I'm gonna. Let's see. I'm at 42 minutes right now, so I'm gonna go into this real quickly. But sleeper cells are an interesting thing. And I know they exist. There's no doubt about it. They send people over here. I mean, if you look at it during the Biden administration, when he was letting people come across the border willy-nilly, the vast majority of them were young males. Okay. So you're telling me that none of these people were Iranians, none of them were sleeper cells, people who were going to come to the United States, lie in wait, and then attack the United States at a later date when they're instructed to. Of course they were. The funny thing is, and the way I look at it, I don't think these sleeper cells are quite as dangerous as you think they are. And the reason I believe that is because I think once these guys get over here, get a taste of Western society, get a taste of the freedom, get a taste of what's available out there. I mean, imagine this. Imagine you're living in a country where you can't drink. You can't move around anytime you want. You're told what to do every step of the way. You live in squalor. Basically, in a lot of these places, in Afghanistan and Iraq at times, I mean, you're talking about people living in caves. You come over here, suddenly you're taken out of that environment, and you're thrown into this other environment where you've got booze on every on every corner. You've got grocery stores that are full of food. You've got strip clubs. You've got women walking, and you're telling me this guy wants to change this? No. I think most of these sleeper cells go, you know what? I think we're gonna hold off on doing what the boss says because I kind of like this life. I really do. I met this gal. We're at, I got a girlfriend. I got a job. I've got a nice apartment. I bought a car. Suddenly the sleeper cell, suddenly radical Islam seems like, maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we're going to put this off. That's what I think's happened. I think once you get a taste of Western society, it's hard to go back. So that's just me. I could be wrong. Because you'll notice there haven't been any major, now, there haven't been any major disasters here lately. Now, mind you, we're bombing the crap out of this country. Wouldn't now be the time to bring out the sleeper cells? Wouldn't it? I think it'd be the perfect time to bring out the sleeper cell. But we haven't seen that. And why haven't we seen that? Why haven't we seen that? Because I think these guys got adjusted to this environment. Stands to reason, doesn't it? Because we know they're here. So, American, Western society's not quite as bad as they thought it was. That's my guess. But anyway, again, I want to thank you for listening. I really do. I really appreciate it. And I want you to understand again, and I don't want to drive it in the ground, but subscriptions, subs and likes, that is the currency of YouTube. And I want to get out into the current. That's what I want to do. And all I'm asking is you do that. It takes 30 seconds. So I'd appreciate it. All right. Well, that's all I got today. And we will be back and we will have more to talk about. All right. You have a good one.
A little bit of crazy, but a whole lot of right. You're listening to the Average Joe Podcast with Damon Gilbert.